How does a regular teenager from the suburbs end up on the cover of magazines worldwide without singing a single note? Is it luck, or is it a carefully calculated plan? We have dug deep into the rock archives to find the 20 most controversial climbs to the top. These stories involve secret diaries, music video scandals, and broken hearts. You will never look at these rock icons the same way again. 1. Pamela des Barres. If there was ever a queen of the backstage world, it was Pamela des Barres. She was a high school girl from Reseda, California, who had a dream that was bigger than her small town. She did not want to just watch the rock stars from the crowd. She wanted to be part of their world. Pamela figured out early on that her charm and beauty were her ticket to the other side of the velvet rope. She started hanging around the Sunset Strip, the famous street in Los Angeles where all the clubs were. It did not take long for her to get noticed. You see, Pamela had a way about her that made the biggest rock gods feel comfortable. She became intimately involved with Jimmy Page, the legendary guitarist of Led Zeppelin. Being on the arm of a man like Jimmy Page was like having a key to the city. Suddenly, doors that were locked to everyone else swung wide open for her. She traveled with the bands, stayed in the fancy hotels, and lived the life of a star without having to play a single note. But Pamela was smart. She was not just there for the party. She was taking notes. She kept detailed diaries of everything that happened. Decades later, she turned those diaries into a best-selling book called I Am With the Band. That book made her famous all over again. She proved that she was more than just a pretty face in the crowd. She was a historian of the wildest era in music. But while Pamela was the queen, there was a young rival coming up who was even more daring, and her story is a lot more controversial. 2. Lori Mattix. The story of Lori Mattix is one that still shocks people to this day. She was incredibly young when she entered the rock scene in Los Angeles. We are talking about a teenager, barely 14 years old. In the 1970s, the rules were very different, and people looked the other way when it comes to things that would never fly today. Lori was stunningly beautiful and looked much older than she was. She quickly became a fixture at the Hyatt House, a hotel so famous for rock and roll parties that people called it the Riot House. Lori set her sights high. She ended up in a relationship with Jimmy Page, the very same rock star Pamela had dated. The difference was that Lori was practically a child. The rock magazines at the time treated it like a glamorous fairy tale, but looking back, it is a dark chapter. Lori became famous simply for being the baby groupie who captured the heart of a rock god. She was photographed everywhere and became a symbol of the excess of that time. Later on, she dated other musicians, including members of the band Quiet Riot. She used these relationships to stay in the spotlight, becoming a model and a well-known face in Hollywood. But the fame that comes from being a teenage muse comes with a heavy price. Lori eventually faded from the scene, but her name remains legendary for how young she was when she climbed to the top. Speaking of legends, the next person on our list didn't just date the stars, she practically ran the entire social scene of Los Angeles. 3. Sable Starr. If you walked into a club called the Rainbow Bar and Grill in 1973, you would see one person holding court. Her name was Sable Starr, and she was known as the Queen of the Groupies. Sable was the leader of a group of girls who treated meeting rock stars like a professional sport. She was incredibly driven and knew exactly who to talk to and where to be. She was not interested in the roadies or the backup players. Sable only went for the front men. She famously had a relationship with Iggy Pop, the wild singer of the Stooges. She also spent time with Rod Stewart and members of Led Zeppelin. Sable was a master of using her connections. Because she was with the biggest stars, photographers wanted to take her picture too. She became a celebrity in her own right, appearing in magazines just for being the coolest girl in the room. bands would actually compete to see who could get Sable to come to their show, because if she was there, it meant the party was legitimate. Sable paved the way for the idea that a fan could become as famous as the idol. She influenced the fashion and the attitude of the heavy metal scene for years to come. But while Sable collected relationships, our next entry collected something far more physical, and her method of getting famous was truly one of a kind. 4. Cynthia Plaster Caster. Cynthia Albritton, better known as Cynthia Plaster Caster, had the most unique gimmick in rock history. She was an art student from Chicago who loved music, but she wanted to get closer to the bands in a way that nobody else had thought of. She decided she would make plaster casts of the private parts of famous musicians. It sounds crazy, but it worked like a charm. It gave her a reason to approach these huge stars with a strictly business proposition that was also very intimate. She started with Jimi Hendrix, which is a massive name to have on your resume. Once she had cast him, word spread like wildfire through the music community. Suddenly, heavy metal and rock stars were lining up to be part of her collection. She spent time with members of Kiss and other huge acts. Paul Stanley of Kiss was one of the people she got close to, gaining access that no journalist or photographer could ever dream of. Cynthia became a cult celebrity. She was not just a fan, she was an artist with a very specific muse. She slept her way into the inner circles of the biggest bands in the world, all in the name of her art. Documentary crews followed her, and songs were written about her. She turned her obsession into a career that lasted for decades. But while Cynthia was making art, our next star was making a family tree that would confuse even the best historians. 5. Bebe Buell. Bebe Buell was a model with a look that could stop traffic. She moved to New York City and instantly fell into the rock and roll crowd. But Bebe was different. She did not just want to be a decoration, she wanted to be a muse. She had high-profile romances with some of the most famous men in music, including Todd Rundgren, Mick Jagger, and Iggy Pop. She was everywhere, and her face was constantly in the magazines. Her most famous connection, however, was with Steven Tyler, the lead singer of Aerosmith. They had a brief but intense fling that resulted in a daughter named Liv. For a long time, Bebe kept the secret of who Liv's real father was, raising her with Todd Rundgren. This mystery only added to her mystique. When the truth finally came out, it cemented Bebe as one of the most important women in rock history. She had connected the dots between different bands and eras. Bebe used her rock relationships to fuel her modeling career and later her own music career. She wrote books and gave interviews about her time at the top. She showed that you could navigate that world with a certain amount of class and come out the other side as a respected figure. But the 80s were coming, and the next lady on our list would define the era of the video vixen with just one car hood. 6. Tawny Kitaen. When you think of 80s glam metal, you think of big hair, loud guitars, and Tawny Kitaen. Tawny was an actress who had been working in Hollywood, but her real explosion into fame came from her personal life. She started dating Robin Crosby, the guitarist for the metal band Rat. Because of this connection, she appeared on the cover of their albums. That was her first step into the metal world, and the fans loved her. But Tawny was ambitious. She eventually moved on to David Coverdale, the lead singer of Whitesnake. This relationship changed pop culture history. David put Tawny in the music video for their song, Here I Go Again. The image of Tawny in a white dress doing cartwheels across the hoods of 2 Jaguar cars became the most iconic visual of the entire decade. You could not turn on the TV without seeing her. She became more famous than the band members themselves. Her marriage to David Coverdale did not last, but it did not matter. She had already cemented her place as the ultimate heavy metal video queen. She used that fame to get roles in movies and TV shows for years. Tawny proved that being the girlfriend of the lead singer could make you a global superstar if you played your cards right. Speaking of video vixens, the next woman on our list had a smile that sold millions of records. 7. Bobby Brown. Bobby Brown was a beauty pageant queen, a pristine Miss Louisiana Teen USA. She was the total opposite of the gritty heavy metal world, but she was looking for excitement. She went to a concert for the band Warrant, and the lead singer, Johnny Lane, spotted her in the crowd. It was like a scene from a movie. He was instantly obsessed with her. He cast her in the video for their massive hit song, Cherry Pie. In the video, Bobby is smiling and dancing, and just like Tawny, she became an instant icon. The song was everywhere, and so was she. Bobby and Johnny Lane got married quickly. It was a whirlwind romance that put Bobby on the map. She was suddenly royalty in the metal scene. Being Mrs. Johnny Lane opened every door in Hollywood. She got reality TV offers and hosting gigs. However, the rock and roll lifestyle is hard on marriages. The relationship had its ups and downs and eventually ended. But Bobby wrote a book about her experiences called Dirty Rocker Boys. In it, she detailed exactly what it was like to be the trophy wife of a heavy metal star. She was honest about how she used her beauty and her connections to build a life she never could have had in Louisiana. But sometimes, the person climbing the ladder is a musician themselves, like our next entry. 8. Lita Ford. Lita Ford is a bit different because she is a genuine rock star with amazing talent. She was the lead guitarist for the Runaways, an all-girl band that broke huge barriers, but Lita also knew how to play the game. In the male-dominated world of heavy metal, she formed strategic relationships with some of the biggest names around. She had a high-profile engagement to Tony Iommi, the guitarist for Black Sabbath. Being with the godfather of heavy metal gave Lita a certain level of credibility with the hardcore fans. It kept her name in the press even when she was between albums. She also had a relationship with Nikki Sixx of Motley Crue. These power couple pairings were like gold for publicity. It made Lita seem like she was at the very center of the metal universe. Of course, Lita had the skills to back it up. She wrote hits like Kiss Me Deadly. But there is no denying that her romances with other heavy metal royalty helped keep her relevant and in the spotlight during a very competitive time. She navigated the boys' club by dating the leaders of the pack. The next woman on our list took a similar path, but with a much more grunge style. 9. Courtney Love. Courtney Love is a force of nature. Before she was the front woman of the band Hole, she was an actress and a musician trying to make it in the underground scene. She was incredibly smart and knew that knowing the right people was half the battle. She dated several figures in the rock world, hopping from one scene to another. She had a relationship with Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins right as they were getting huge. But her life changed forever when she met Kurt Cobain of Nirvana. Nirvana was the biggest band on the planet, and by marrying Kurt, Courtney instantly became the most talked about woman in music. Some people said she used him for fame, while others said it was true love. Regardless of what people thought, the reality was that her band, Hole, got a massive amount of attention because of who her husband was. Courtney used that platform to release her own masterpiece album, Live Through This. She proved she was a talented artist, but her entry into the global elite was undeniably accelerated by her high-profile marriage. She remains one of the most controversial figures in rock, a woman who clawed her way to the top by being louder and more aggressive than anyone else. But long before Courtney, there was a woman who turned a rock marriage into a business empire. 10. Sharon Osbourne. Sharon Osbourne is the ultimate example of a woman who came into the game through family and romance, but ended up running the whole show. She was the daughter of Don Arden, a famous music manager. But her real climb started when she began a relationship with Ozzy Osbourne, the singer of Black Sabbath. When they got together, Ozzy was in a bad place. He had been fired from his band and was dealing with a lot of personal demons. Sharon did not just date him, she took over his life. She became his manager and his wife. She used her position to build Ozzy into a solo superstar, but in doing so, she made herself a star too. She was ruthless in business. She made sure that if Ozzy got paid, she got paid. She negotiated deals that made them one of the richest families in Britain. Later, she orchestrated the reality show The Osbournes. This made her a household name around the world. Sharon proved that you do not have to just be the wife on the side of the stage. You can be the boss. She slept her way into the heart of a rock legend and then used that position to build a dynasty that will last forever. But not every rock wife story ends with a business empire. Some end in mystery, like the next one. 11. Cherise Neal. In the glamour of the Sunset Strip, mud wrestling was surprisingly popular at the clubs. It was there that Vince Neil, the singer of Motley Crue, met a stunning mud wrestler named Cherise Rudell. Vince was the blonde frontman of the wildest band in the world. Cherise saw an opportunity. She was beautiful, tough, and ready for the spotlight. They started dating, and it was a whirlwind of parties and paparazzi. Cherise married Vince and became one of the most visible wives in the metal scene. She was everywhere he was. She used the exposure to launch her own modeling career and even design clothes. Being Mrs. Neal meant she had VIP access to the entire world. She traveled on the private jets and lived in the mansions. The relationship was volatile, as many rock romances are, and they eventually split up. But Cherise had made her mark. She transitioned from a club wrestler to a Hollywood socialite purely through her connection to the heavy metal hierarchy. It is a classic Hollywood story of using a relationship to jump socioeconomic levels in a single bound. The next entry on our list involves a tattoo artist who used rock, romances to become a TV star. 12. Kat Von D. Kat Von D is a famous tattoo artist, but her leap to mainstream celebrity had a lot to do with who she was dating. She was a talented artist on a reality show called Miami Inc., but she really blew up when she started dating Nikki Sixx of Motley Crue. Once again, the bass player of the Crue appears in our story. Dating a rock legend gave Kat a huge boost in visibility. Suddenly, she was not just a tattoo artist, she was a rock star girlfriend. The tabloids followed her everywhere. She leaned into the rock and roll aesthetic, which was perfect for her brand. After Nikki, she had a very high-profile engagement to Jesse James, another figure in the motorcycle and rock world. These relationships kept her name in the headlines constantly. Kat used this fame to launch her own makeup line, which became a billion-dollar business. She wrote books and got her own spin-off show, LA Inc. While she is undeniably talented with a tattoo machine, her strategic romances with heavy metal icons acted like rocket fuel for her career. She bridged the gap between the tattoo world and the music world perfectly. Speaking of bridging gaps, our next star came from the world of Prince, but found a home in heavy metal. 13. Carmen Electra. Carmen Electra started out as a protege of the pop star Prince. He gave her her name and tried to launch her rap career. But when that did not quite take off, Carmen pivoted. She realized that the rock world was a great place to find attention. She became a Playboy model, which was the standard entry point for 90s fame. But her profile skyrocketed when she married Dave Navarro. Dave Navarro was the guitarist for Jane's Addiction and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He was the ultimate cool, dark, brooding rock star. Their relationship was captured on a reality show called Till Death Do Us Part. The show was a hit. It showed the world their strange, gothic wedding and their wild lifestyle. Carmen used this exposure to cement herself as an alternative S symbol. She was no longer just a Baywatch actress. She was a rock and roll queen. Even though the marriage did not last, the image of her and Dave together is iconic. It gave her an edge that other actresses did not have. She used the momentum to host shows on MTV and stay relevant for years. But even Carmen could not compete with the most famous rock wife of the 90s. 14. Pamela Anderson. Pamela Anderson was already famous for Baywatch, but her fame went nuclear when she met Tommy Lee, the drummer of Motley Crue. They met at a New Year's Eve party and got married just 4 days later on a beach in Mexico. It was impulsive, it was crazy, and the world was obsessed. Pamela and Tommy became the king and queen of the 90s rock scene. Their relationship was a constant headline. They were wild, they were loud, and they were always in trouble. Then came the infamous stolen home video. While it was a violation of their privacy, it undeniably made them the most talked about couple on Earth. Pamela's association with the bad boy drummer gave her a dangerous, edgy appeal that she did not have before. She used the attention to land movie roles like Barbed Wire. She became a symbol of the decade. Her relationship with Tommy Lee was the engine that drove her celebrity for years. Even decades later, people are still fascinated by their love story. It proved that a TV star and a heavy metal drummer could create a cultural explosion. But sometimes, the fame comes from a much darker place, like our next story. 15. Nancy Spungen. The story of Nancy Spungen is a tragedy, but it fits the pattern of someone seeking fame through a musician. Nancy was an American girl who moved to London specifically to get into the punk rock scene. She had a list of musicians she wanted to meet. She eventually zeroed in on Sid Vicious, the bass player for the S Pistols. The S Pistols were the most controversial band in the world at that time. Nancy became Sid's manager and his girlfriend. They were inseparable. However, their relationship was fueled by wild habits and destructive behavior. Nancy wanted to be famous, and in a way, she got her wish. She and Sid became the Romeo and Juliet of the punk world, but it was a dark, twisted version of the story. Nancy was found passed away in a hotel room in New York, and Sid was accused of ending her life. He passed away shortly after. Nancy became a household name not for her talent, but for her proximity to fame and her tragic end. It is a cautionary tale about how dangerous the climb can be when you are dealing with instability. The next entry is a bit lighter, focusing on a model who married a guitar hero. 16. Perla Ferrar, the guitarist for Guns N' Roses, is one of the most recognizable people on the planet with his top hat and curly hair. For a long time, the woman by his side was Perla Ferrar. Perla met Slash at a party for his band after the Guns N' Roses glory days. She was a regular in the rock nightlife scene. She knew how to handle the big personalities of musicians. When she married Slash, she took on a major role. She helped manage his life and his business. Guns N' Roses was falling apart, and Slash was starting new projects like Velvet Revolver. Perla was right there, helping to steer the ship. Being Mrs. Slash gave her a massive platform. She appeared on reality shows and started her own kids' clothing line. She used the connection to build a comfortable life and a personal brand. While they eventually had a messy divorce, Perla had successfully transitioned from a party girl to a business owner and public figure. She showed that there is a lot of power in being the woman behind the man in the top hat. But sometimes the connection is not marriage, but a very public fling. 17. Carey Otis. Carey Otis was a high-fashion model, gracing the covers of Vogue and Elle. But her crossover into the mainstream celebrity world happened when she starred in a movie called Wild Orchid with Mickey Rourke. Now, Mickey is an actor, but he ran in the heavy rock circles, and Carey was often seen at the Viper Room and other rock clubs. She was part of that gritty Hollywood scene. She had connections to the heavy metal world through the photographers and the parties she attended. Her fame was boosted by her bad girl image. She was not just a smiling model. She was edgy. She dated around the scene, and her tumultuous relationships kept her in the tabloids. While she did not marry a metal star specifically, she used the rock and roll aesthetic and the men in that orbit to change her image from a pristine model to a cool, dangerous celebrity. It was a strategic pivot that allowed her to work for years as an icon of 90s grunge glam. The next woman on our list is another Playboy bunny who found love with a familiar bass player. 18. Brandy Brandt. It seems like Nikki Sixx is a recurring character in this list, and for good reason. He was the ultimate rock star bachelor. Brandy Brandt was a Playboy playmate, the classic American beauty. In the late 80s, the path from the Playboy mansion to the backstage area of a Motley Crue concert was a well-worn trail. Brandy and Nikki got married, bringing together two major pop culture brands, Playboy and heavy metal. For Brandy, this was a huge level up. She went from being a magazine model to being the wife of a millionaire rock star. She had access to the best of everything. They had kids together and lived the high life. The marriage kept her name relevant long after her modeling days might have faded. Although they eventually divorced and Nikki moved on to other famous women like Donna D'Errico, Brandy's time as a rock wife is the most famous part of her biography. It shows how the ecosystem worked. Models needed rockers for excitement and fame, and rockers needed models for status. It was a perfect trade. Speaking of trade, our next entry involves a pop superstar who used metal for street cred. 19. Britney Spears. Now hear me out. Britney Spears is the princess of pop. But early in her career, she made very strategic moves to connect herself with the hard rock and nu metal scene to shed her innocent Disney image. She famously had a fling with Fred Durst, the frontman of Limp Bizkit. At the time, Limp Bizkit was the biggest rap metal band in the world. By associating with Fred Durst, Britney got people talking. It was a clash of worlds. It made her seem edgier and more adult. There were also rumors of her connecting with other producers and figures in the rock world to get the sound she wanted for her album Blackout. She covered the song I Love Rock and Roll and performed with Aerosmith at the Super Bowl. Britney didn't need the money, but she needed the cool factor. Sleeping with or dating the bad boys of rock gave her that grit. It was a calculated move to transition from a teen idol to a serious adult artist who could hang with the heavy hitters. It worked perfectly. She became a cultural icon who transcended genre. And finally, we have the women who did not just date one star, but inspired the greatest songs. 20. The Muses of Axl Rose. Axl Rose, the singer of Guns N' Roses, was known for his volatility, but he was also a romantic. He dated a string of high-profile women, most notably the supermodel Stephanie Seymour. Stephanie was already a famous model, but appearing in the November Rain video launched her into the stratosphere. In the video, she marries Axl and then tragically passes away. It is one of the most expensive and famous videos ever made. By dating Axl, Stephanie became the face of the biggest rock ballad in history. It exposed her to millions of metal fans who would never buy a fashion magazine. It was a mutually beneficial relationship. Axl got the most beautiful woman in the world, and Stephanie got immortality in music history. There was also Erin Everly, Axl's first wife, who was the inspiration for the song Sweet Child O' Mine. Being the subject of a song that gets played on the radio 1,000,000 times a day is a special kind of fame. These women used their relationships with the frontman to become permanent fixtures in pop culture. So, there you have it. the road to the top is not always paved with talent and hard work. Sometimes it is paved with backstage passes, secret diaries, and strategic romances. In the wild world of heavy metal, who you slept with was just as important as what instrument you played. It was a time of excess, ambition, and blurred lines. And while the music has lasted forever, the stories of how these people climbed the ladder are just as fascinating. It's like a Hollywood mystery. A star presents one face to the public, but whispers say they are living a different life in private. For these 20 metal stars, the rumors became a legend all their own. We'll reveal why the public wouldn't let it go, not even for the biggest names in the business, like the members of KISS. 1. Paul Stanley. Let's kick this off with a massive one. We're talking about Paul Stanley. Yeah, the star child from KISS. He's the high-kicking, pouty-lipped frontman who flies over the crowd. His whole persona is about being a lover and a rock and roll star. He's known for his passionate stage presence and his voice that hits notes most guys can't dream of. But here's the kicker. For decades, ever since KISS exploded in the 1970s, whispers followed him. People on the internet and in magazines constantly questioned his personal life and his preferences. It became one of the longest-running rumors in rock history. Why, you ask? You see, in the 70s, a man wearing that much makeup, spandex, and platform boots was a bold statement. To put it mildly, his star child character was very flamboyant and glittery. He was pretty, and he knew it. What many overlooked was that this was a new kind of male performer for a lot of people in small-town America. The glam rock style he helped invent was all about blurring the lines and being a spectacle. Now, Paul himself has shot this down hard. Especially in recent years, he has called the rumors ridiculous. He's been married to women, has children, and wrote all about his life in his book. But the thing nobody tells you is that when you build a career on mystery and makeup, the rumors never really go away. But Paul wasn't the only member of KISS under the microscope. His fire-breathing, tongue-wagging partner, who built an entire brand on being a ladies' man, faced the exact same questions. 2. Gene Simmons. That's right, we're talking about Gene Simmons, the demon himself. His entire image was the total opposite of Paul's, or so it seemed. He was the monster, the one who spit blood and breathed fire. His whole brand was built on being a creature of the night, and famously, a non-stop ladies' man. Believe it or not, even Gene, who has claimed in countless interviews to have been with thousands of women, faced questions about his true preferences. It seems crazy, right? The guy's entire career is one long boast about his conquests. But here's what many overlooked. The glam rock image, the makeup, the costumes, it was a package deal. In the 70s, the public didn't always see the difference between the characters. If Paul was being questioned for being pretty and flamboyant, Gene was being questioned for simply being in the band. The rumors suggested that his loud claims were just a cover, a way to build a macho image to hide something else. To put it mildly, Gene has laughed this off for years. He calls the rumors, just like Paul, ridiculous. His entire brand, from his reality show to his books, is built on being a red-blooded male. And here's a wow factor. Gene's famous tongue, which was a big part of his stage act, is reportedly insured for over $1 million. KISS set the stage for glam, but the 1980s took that look and ran with it. The 80s turned the makeup and hair into an art form, and the poster boy for that era had to deny rumors his entire career. 3. Vince Neil. When you think of 80s hair metal, you probably think of Motley Crue. And when you think of Motley Crue, you think of their blonde-haired singer, Vince Neil. They were the absolute kings of the Sunset Strip trip in Hollywood. They were the band that defined the whole look, sound, and attitude of a generation. But that's exactly where the questions started. The 80s hair metal scene was just full of whispers, and Vince was often at the very center of them. The public just couldn't wrap its head around the band's look. You see, the look was everything. These guys wore more makeup than most women. They had giant, teased hair that reached for the sky. They wore skin-tight spandex, leather, and sometimes even high-heeled boots. Their look was deliberately androgynous, a word that just means it blended male and female styles. This was all over music television, and it made a lot of people in the public wonder, what is going on with these guys? For his part, Vince has lived his life as a total playboy. His denial wasn't really in words, but in his actions. His entire life was broadcast all over magazines and television, and it was always about parties and women. And here's a little wow factor. Motley Crue's look was so extreme in their early days that some club owners in Los Angeles reportedly thought they were an all-girl band when they first saw their picture. Vince was the singer, but the whole band looked that way. The next star on our list took that exact same look, pushed it even further, and built an empire on it, all while facing the exact same questions. 4. Bret Michaels. If Motley Crue opened the door for the glam metal look, the band Poison kicked it down, painted it pink, and covered it in glitter. And their frontman, Bret Michaels, became the ultimate poster boy for the era. He was the one every mom warned their daughters about, and the one many fans were obsessed with. But with that fame came a whole lot of questions. Bret's androgynous look was a major topic of discussion. It was even more extreme than the bands that came before him. Poison was famous for their party anthems, but it was their album covers that really got people talking. Just look at their first album, Look What the Cat Dragged In. The band is shown with so much makeup, lipstick, and hairspray that they were almost unrecognizable as men. This image stuck with Bret for his entire career. The public saw that image, heard the party boy lyrics, and couldn't make the two things match. Bret has always denied the rumors, often blaming them on stereotypes. He's pointed out that the look was just a show to get attention, and it clearly worked. Later in his career, he would star in a very popular reality show about finding a partner, which seemed designed to reinforce his ladies' man image once and for all. What many overlook is that Bret has managed all of this, a high-energy career spanning decades while also being a type 1 diabetic. Bret's case is so persistent that we'll actually come back to him later. But first, let's look at a star who came from the same 80s scene but had a much harder, more dangerous, and more chaotic edge. 5. Axl Rose. When Guns N' Roses exploded onto the scene, they were seen as the answer to the pretty boys of glam metal. They were real, dangerous, and came from the dirty side of Hollywood. At the front of it all was Axl Rose, the fiery redhead with a one-in-a-million voice and a famously short temper. But even Axl, with his rough-and-tumble image, couldn't escape the whispers. It seems wild, given his reputation, but the questions followed him everywhere. So where did they come from? You see, the rumors mostly came from feuds. Other musicians, in bitter public battles with Axl, would sling mud and make accusations to get under his skin. On top of that, Axl's on-stage style was very unique. He had his high-pitched, screaming wail. He had his famous snake-like dance. And his fashion sense was all over the place. He would wear kilts, tiny biker shorts, football jerseys, and bandanas. It was a confusing and flashy image for a guy who was supposed to be a street kid. Axl has never really addressed the rumors directly. He's not the type to sit down and clear the air. Instead, he lets his very public and often very troubled relationships with famous women do all the talking for him. Here's a wow factor. The name Axl Rose is an anagram, a word puzzle for oral sex. But his birth name was William Bruce Rose. He legally changed it to W. Axl Rose, making the anagram a very strange coincidence. Axl's feuds were legendary, but the next guy on our list got into massive trouble, not for a feud, but for a single piece of clothing that sparked a huge firestorm and followed him for his entire career. 6. Sebastian Bach. At the tail end of the 80s, a new band called Skid Row burst out. They were heavier than Poison, but still had the looks, thanks to their tall, blonde, and incredibly powerful singer, Sebastian Bach. He had a scream that could shatter glass and the face of a model, but his career was almost completely derailed by one very bad choice. In 1989, he was photographed wearing a t-shirt with a very, very hateful message on it. The message was not just offensive, it was aggressive, and it made headlines everywhere. This incident is what sparked a lot of the questions about him. But the thing nobody tells you is that the questions weren't just about his preference. The public's questioning was more about his character. Why would he wear that? Does he mean it? It was a huge scandal. Years later, rumors about his own private life began to bubble up, and people pointed back to that t-shirt. Some wondered if his aggressive public stance was a way to overcorrect or hide something. Sebastian has apologized for the shirt many times, calling it a stupid, youthful mistake. He said he was thrown the shirt and put it on without reading it. As for any personal rumors, he has consistently denied them, living a very public life with female partners. Sebastian Bach was the pretty boy of the heavier side of metal. But our next guy was the pretty boy of all rock, and his clean-cut image made people wonder what was hiding underneath. 7. Jon Bon Jovi. Let's talk about one of the biggest rock stars on the planet, Jon Bon Jovi. For a lot of people in the 80s and 90s, he was the ultimate rock heartthrob. He had the smile, the hair, the voice, and the songs that everyone's girlfriend loved. He wasn't like the dangerous guys from Motley Crue. He was the guy you could actually bring home to mom. But that pretty boy image, the one that sold millions of records, also came with a side of persistent whispers. The public, especially in online forums and gossip columns, just couldn't believe someone could be that good-looking and that clean without a secret. You see, the rumors about Jon Bon Jovi were quieter, not as loud as the glam metal guys, but they were there. People questioned his preferences. The fact that he was so universally liked and non-threatening made some people suspicious. It was the classic "he must be hiding something" argument. The rock world was supposed to be rough and edgy, and here was a guy who looked like a male model and sang love songs. What's the reality? To put it mildly, his denial has been his entire life. Jon Bon Jovi has been with the same woman, his high school sweetheart Dorothea, since before he was famous. They got married at the height of his fame and have been together for decades, raising a family. His entire life has been a stone-cold denial of any and all whispers. We mentioned we'd be back to another star, and his case is so famous it deserves a second look, especially what he wrote in his own book. 8. Bret Michaels. As promised, we are back to Bret Michaels. We already talked about how Poison's extreme look in the 80s started the rumors. But the thing nobody tells you is how long and how hard Bret has had to fight those whispers, even decades later. What many overlooked is that the questions didn't stop when the 80s ended. They followed him right into his reality show career, and they bothered him so much that he spent a lot of time in his own autobiography, Roses and Thorns, addressing them head-on. In his book, Bret talks all about the 80s. He doubles down, saying he loved women and that the party scene was wild. He makes it very, very clear that despite the makeup and the hair, his preferences were always for women. But here's the kicker. For some people, the fact that he had to deny it so strongly and so often just made them more suspicious. It's the old "thou dost protest too much" idea, where denying something too hard makes people think it must be true. Bret's life has been a very public one. Between his music, his reality shows, and his health scares he's shared a lot. But those early images from the "Look What the Cat Dragged In" album cover are so powerful they've continued to make the public question him for over 30 years. From one master showman to another, our next star was so flamboyant on stage, he made Bret Michaels look quiet. And he was doing it way earlier. 9. David Lee Roth. We're talking about Diamond Dave. David Lee Roth, the original high-kicking, spandex-wearing frontman for the mighty Van Halen. He wasn't just a singer, he was a one-man circus. He did karate kicks, splits in midair, and partied on a level that few could ever match. His entire stage persona was completely over the top. He was all about flash, charm, and being the center of attention. And it was that very flamboyance that made people wonder. You see, Dave's act was so big, so theatrical, that some in the public and media questioned if it was all just an act. Was this guy really the king of the party he claimed to be, or was he a performer playing a character? The rumors about his private preferences lingered for his entire career. People saw the non-stop party boy claims as a clever cover. The reality? David Lee Roth has always claimed to be the ultimate ladies' man. His public-facing life has been one long story of wild parties. But he's also a very smart and private person underneath the Diamond Dave character. He's never married, and he keeps his real personal life under lock and key. This mystery, combined with his flashy stage act, is what has kept the public questioning for decades. Dave was a 70s and 80s icon, but our next star started blurring the lines even before that, and his influence trickled down to all of rock and metal. 10. Mick Jagger. Okay, before you say it, Mick Jagger isn't heavy metal. You're right, but the user's list includes him, and here's why it makes sense. His influence is everywhere. The Rolling Stones' heavy guitar riffs helped create hard rock, and his frontman swagger was copied by almost every singer who came after him, including many in metal. And Mick Jagger has been at the center of rumors about his preferences since the 1960s. For over 50 years, the public has been questioning him. Where did it come from? It all started with his look and his friends. In the late 60s and 70s, Mick embraced an androgynous style. He wore makeup, flashy scarves, and tight jumpsuits. He was close friends with David Bowie, and the two of them were the kings of the glam rock scene, a style built on challenging norms. Their closeness and shared style made the gossip columns go wild. Mick, much like Gene Simmons, has a public image built on being with countless women, especially models. He has numerous children with several different partners. He has never confirmed any of the rumors and has mostly just ignored them. But those iconic images from the 70s, combined with his unique, flamboyant dancing, have kept the whispers alive for his entire career. The rumors about 70s and 80s stars make sense. But what about the guys from thrash metal, the no-makeup bands? Believe it or not, they got questioned too. 11. Lars Ulrich. This is where things take a turn. We're moving away from the glam, the makeup, and the hairspray. We're talking about Metallica, the biggest metal band in the world. And we're talking about their drummer and co-founder, Lars Ulrich. Metallica's whole image was built on being the opposite of bands like Poison. They wore jeans, t-shirts, and sneakers. They were the real guys, the metal guys. So where in the world did any questions about Lars come from? You see, this is a new kind of rumor. It's not from the 70s gossip pages. According to the user's notes, these are forum rumors. This is the kind of speculation that bubbles up from the dark corners of the internet. Fans online will analyze everything. They'll look at old interviews, pictures of band members being close, or just make things up for fun. What many overlooked is that Lars has always been the mouth of the band. He's chatty, he's European, and he's been seen as more artistic and less macho than his bandmate, James Hetfield. On internet forums, this is all the evidence some people need. How does Lars respond? He laughs it off. He's never given these online rumors a direct denial because they are so baseless. He's been married multiple times to women and has a family. This one is purely a product of the internet age. But if the public was whispering about Lars, you know they were definitely whispering about his much more macho bandmate. 12. James Hetfield. This one might be the most shocking on the list. James Hetfield. Papa Het. The Yeah guy, the voice of Master of Puppets and Enter Sandman. He is, for many, the very definition of a manly metal frontman. His image is all about hunting, building cars, and being a tough-as-nails leader. So how could anyone question his preferences? It seems impossible. Here's the thing nobody tells you. The whispers about James are very, very quiet. They are hidden deep in the same online forums that talk about Lars. But they exist. The reasoning is often that his macho image is so strong, it must be hiding something. It's the same argument used against the 80s Playboys, just in a different package. Also, for many years, James had a very public battle with his personal demons, especially with substances. During this time, he became very vulnerable, and a new age of fans began to analyze his lyrics and his onstage bromance with Lars. This created a new kind of speculation that the old-school fans would have never dreamed of. The denial, in this case, is James's entire life. He's a proud father, and until recently was married for over 20 years. His public image as a family man who loves manly hobbies is his silent denial. If questioning Metallica seems wild, our next band is even more extreme. The public even had whispers about the kings of dark, aggressive thrash metal. 13. Tom Araya. We're not just dipping our toes into heavy music anymore. We're diving into the deep end. We're talking about Slayer. A band so heavy and so dark, they make Metallica sound like pop music. And at the front was Tom Araya, the bassist and singer with the signature scream. Slayer's entire image was built on dark, serious, and aggressive themes. There was no makeup, no spandex, no love songs. This was pure, uncut, fast metal. So it's pretty hard to believe that any rumors about personal preferences would pop up. But just like with Metallica, they did. In the 80s, when Slayer was first coming up, their long hair and tight jeans were still part of a look that was strange to mainstream America. The rumors were not widespread, but they existed. What's the reality? Tom Araya is famously a very quiet, private, and religious family man. He lives on a ranch in Texas. His onstage persona, screaming about dark and twisted subjects, is a complete opposite of his real-life personality. This quiet, ranch life living is the ultimate silent denial. Tom was the calm one in Slayer, but the other main guy in the band, the one who looked like the most intimidating man in metal, also had to face questions. 14. Kerry King. Let's stick with Slayer. If Tom Araya was the regular guy, Kerry King was the face of the band. Bald head, giant tribal tattoos all the way up his skull, a huge beard, big chains hanging from his belt. He looked, to put it mildly, like the most aggressive and intimidating man in music. He is the image of Slayer. He's the one who wrote many of the most aggressive songs. He never smiles in photos. He just looks tough. So, again, where do the questions come from? This is another case of the internet. As podcasts and long-form interviews became popular, Kerry King started talking more. And he would be asked about everything. Believe it or not, he has been asked in podcasts about these rumors. The rumors are so bizarre, given his image, that they almost sound like a joke, but he's had to deny them. His denial is one of pure confusion. He basically laughs and asks, "Look at me, are you serious?" His entire public image is a 24/7 denial. But the very fact that he's been asked about it in public forums shows how no one, no matter how tough their image, is safe from public questioning. From the heaviest band, we go to another one of the big four of thrash, led by a man who had a famous falling out with Metallica. 15. Dave Mustaine. Dave Mustaine is a legend. He was the original guitar player for Metallica before they kicked him out. To get revenge, he formed his own band, Megadeth, which became one of the biggest metal bands on Earth. His whole career is built on technical skill, speed, and, to be honest, a bit of anger. Dave's image was always one of a fiery, complex, and incredibly talented musician. He had the long, curly red hair and a signature snarl. So where did the questions come from? The rumors about Dave are from his very early, wilder days. The 80s metal scene was a chaotic place, and stories from that time are legendary. Whispers from that era followed him for years. But the most interesting part is the denial. Later in his life, Dave Mustaine became a born-again Christian. This new, strong faith became a huge part of his public identity. This new religious phase fueled his denials of all the old rumors. He started talking publicly about cleaning up his life, and that included setting the record straight on his past. He wanted to make it very clear that his wild days were just that, wild, but that the rumors about his preferences were totally false. Dave's macho image was classic thrash. But our next star took the macho image to a whole new Southern fried level. 16. Phil Anselmo. In the 1990s, metal changed. The hair bands were out, and a new, heavier, groove metal sound took over. The kings of this new sound were Pantera, and their frontman was Phil Anselmo. He was the ultimate Southern metal bro. He was shaved-headed, tattooed, and always ready for a brawl. His image was 100% macho. Pantera's whole vibe was about being tough, drinking, and being aggressive. But like every other star on this list, he couldn't escape the whispers. The rumors about Phil were not in the mainstream media. They were the kind of whispers that happened in the mosh pit, in tape trading circles, and later on the earliest internet message boards. People would point to his intense, emotional on-stage persona as evidence. For the most part, Phil has always ignored or denied these whispers. His public image, his tough guy talk, and his aggressive Southern identity have been his armor. He has never given the rumors the time of day, likely seeing them as ridiculous given the bro culture he helped create in 90s metal. Phil's image was tough, but our next guy based his entire career on being a muscle-bound comic book tough guy. 17. Glenn Danzig. Glenn Danzig is a one-of-a-kind figure. He started with the legendary horror punk band, The Misfits. Then he formed the blues metal band, Danzig. His whole image is built on being a comic book tough guy. He's short, but he's famously muscular. He sings about darkness, demons, and evil. He's also famously serious and has a reputation for being, well, a bit grumpy. The rumors about Glenn are some of the most persistent in the punk and metal underground. For decades, whispers have followed him. Part of it comes from the Misfits image, which was very theatrical. Part of it comes from his own macho overcompensation. And part of it comes from his famous love of cats. Yes, a photo of him buying cat litter became a huge internet meme, which fueled a new generation of jokes. Glenn has been forced to squash these rumors publicly. He's known for being very aggressive in interviews when a topic he doesn't like comes up. He has made it very, very clear in no uncertain terms that the rumors are false. But the more he fights them, the more the internet seems to enjoy bringing them up. From one Prince of Darkness to the original Prince of Darkness, our next star has had to have his wife deny rumors for him. 18. Ozzy Osbourne. We're talking about the godfather of heavy metal, Ozzy Osbourne, the man who started it all with Black Sabbath. Ozzy's career has been one long, wild, and often very confusing ride. He's famous for being the Prince of Darkness, but also for being a lovable, bumbling dad on his reality show. With a life that public and that chaotic, of course, there were rumors. The whispers about Ozzy aren't like the others. They're not about a secret life. They're about his dazed and confused era. You see, after Ozzy became famous, he was known for his wild antics and his heavy partying. He would often make jokes or do things on stage that were very out there. The public and the media saw this, and rumors started. People joked about his preferences, and some of those jokes turned into full-blown rumors. Who denies them? His wife and manager, Sharon Osbourne. She has been his protector and spokesperson for decades. In interviews, when Ozzy would make a by joke or say something confusing, Sharon would be right there to jump in, deny it for him, and set the record straight. She has been the guardian of his image, and part of that job has been squashing these particular whispers. Ozzy is a legend, but our next star is a legend in a different way. He's a pilot, a fencer, and a historian, who also just happens to be one of the greatest metal singers of all time. 19. Bruce Dickinson. Bruce Dickinson is the air raid siren, the incredible voice of Iron Maiden. But he's so much more. He's a true Renaissance man. He's a licensed airline pilot who flies the band's own jumbo jet. He's a world-class fencer. He's a historian, a brewer, and a novelist. His image is not one of a party boy rocker. It's one of high-class, high-energy intelligence. He's not a macho guy like Hetfield. He's a gentleman rocker. So where do the rumors come from? This is the most bizarre one. The whispers about Bruce are that his entire persona is a cover. The rumor is that his long list of manly and intellectual hobbies, like flying planes and fencing, is so over the top that it must be a carefully built public image to hide his real self. It's the "he's too perfect" argument. What many overlooked is that Bruce's on-stage persona in the 80s was pure theater. He ran around in spandex, leaping off drum risers. This theatricality, combined with his Renaissance man life, made some people question him. Bruce has, of course, paid these rumors no mind. He's too busy flying a 747 or writing a book to care about internet gossip. From one metal legend, we go to our last one, a man whose voice defined a generation and whose myths only grew after he was gone. 20. Ronnie James Dio. We end with a true king. Ronnie James Dio. He sang for Rainbow, he sang for Black Sabbath after Ozzy, and he had his own legendary band, Dio. He's the man who invented the metal horns hand gesture. His voice was arguably the most powerful and epic in all of rock history. He was, and is, beloved. He was seen as a kind, fantasy-obsessed uncle of heavy metal. He sang about dragons, rainbows, and castles. But here's the kicker. The rumors about him didn't really start until after his passing. These are late-career myths. After he was gone, stories and myths about his life began to pop up. And among them were whispers about his private life, things that had never been said when he was alive. This is a strange and sad part of fame. Once a person is gone, they can't defend themselves. Rumors can grow and spread online, and they become part of the myth. In this case, it's been up to his estate and his widow to deny these posthumous or after-death rumors. They have worked hard to protect his legacy and make sure the public remembers him for his music and his kindness, not for baseless stories that popped up at the very end. It's 1998. An MTV host is interviewing the powerful singer of Judas Priest. The interview seems normal until the rock star casually says something that makes the entire music world stop cold, revealing a secret he'd protected for his whole career. That groundbreaking moment was just the tip of the iceberg. 1. Rob Halford of Judas Priest. When you think of heavy metal, you probably picture a guy who looks a lot like Rob Halford. As the lead singer of the legendary band Judas Priest, he created the official heavy metal uniform. We're talking head-to-toe black leather, shiny metal studs, and a tough-as-nails attitude. He is known around the world as the Metal God, and for decades he rode his motorcycle on stage and sang powerful songs with a voice that could shatter glass. His lyrics were all about breaking the law and heavy metal power. But here's the unbelievable part. Behind all that leather and metal, Rob was hiding a huge secret from his fans and his band. He was gay. Back in the 1970s and 80s, the world of heavy metal was not a very accepting place. Rob was terrified that if anyone found out, it would be the end of Judas Priest. He felt he had to play the part of a tough, straight guy to protect the band he loved. Truth be told, he lived in constant fear. It wasn't until 1998, during an interview on MTV, that he finally told the world his truth. He just casually mentioned it, and the interviewer was so surprised he didn't even know what to say. Fans were shocked, but most of them supported him. He was still their metal god. Halford's story of hiding in plain sight as the ultimate metal frontman is incredible. But what about another musical giant from that same era, a man whose voice was known in every corner of the globe, who was also living a secret life? 2. Freddie Mercury of Queen. Everyone on the planet knows the band Queen and the unforgettable voice of their frontman, Freddie Mercury. While some people might call Queen a rock band, they wrote some of the heaviest songs of the 70s, songs that inspired countless heavy metal bands that came after them. Freddie was a true showman. On stage, he was electric, a ball of energy that no one could ignore. He was flamboyant and larger than life, and his voice was one of the greatest in the history of music. The band was a global sensation, with hit after hit. But behind the curtain, Freddie's life was much more private. He was in a loving relationship with a woman named Mary Austin for many years, and she remained his best friend for his whole life. But as time went on, Freddie began to understand that he was attracted to men. In that era, this was a very difficult thing for a massive star to talk about. He kept his personal relationships very quiet, and he never officially came out to the public. He let his music and his powerful stage presence do the talking. His private life was for him and the people he trusted. It was a secret he kept close, known only to his inner circle, as he became one of the most famous musicians in history. Freddie's story was about keeping his private life away from the spotlight. But our next musician's story is about a deep personal battle where his faith and his identity seemed to be at war with each other inside the world of progressive metal. 3. Doug Pinnick of King's X. Deep in the heart of the progressive metal scene, there's a band called King's X. They are famous for their amazing musical skills, deep lyrics, and a sound that mixes heavy riffs with beautiful harmonies. Their lead singer and bassist is a man named Doug Pinnick, who has one of the most soulful and powerful voices in all of rock music. For a long time, King's X was also popular with Christian rock fans because their lyrics often explored themes of faith and spirituality. This put Doug in a very complicated and difficult position. You see, Doug Pinnick is gay. For years, he kept this part of his life completely hidden. He felt trapped. On one side, he was in the heavy metal world, which was not known for being open-minded. On the other side, he had a large Christian following, and he worried they would completely reject him if they knew his truth. He struggled with this for a very long time, feeling like he couldn't be his true self in any part of his life. Finally, in 1998, the same year as Rob Halford, Doug came out in an interview. The reaction was intense. Some fans turned their backs on him, but many more stood by his side, respecting his honesty and bravery. Doug's journey was about finding a way to be himself in a community that made it hard. But what about a musician from the wild world of 80s glam metal who went on a journey not just of the heart, but of their entire identity? 4. Marcy Free of King Cobra. Let's travel back to the 1980s, the era of big hair, flashy clothes, and glam metal. One of the most powerful voices from that time belonged to a singer named Mark Free. He was the frontman for a band called King Cobra, which was put together by the legendary drummer Carmine Appice. Mark had an incredible high-pitched voice that was perfect for the powerful rock anthems of the day. He sang with other bands too, like Signal and Unruly Child, and was known as one of the best singers in the genre. He had the classic rock star look and sound. But for many years, Mark felt like something wasn't right on the inside. He was living with a secret that was much deeper than just who he was attracted to. Mark felt that he was a woman on the inside. This feeling, known as gender dysphoria, was something he dealt with his entire life, long before he became a famous rock singer. In the super macho world of 80s metal, talking about these feelings was simply not possible. So, he kept it hidden. Then, in the 1990s, after stepping away from the music spotlight, Mark began the process of transitioning to become the woman he always knew he was. She chose the name Marcy Free. She later returned to music, sharing her powerful voice and her true self with the world. Marcy's journey to embrace her true gender was groundbreaking. Our next artist from the 90s alternative metal scene shared a similar path, showing the world her authentic self after years of being known as a male frontman. 5. Mina Caputo of Life of Agony. In the 1990s, a new sound emerged called alternative metal. It mixed the power of heavy metal with different feelings and sounds. A band at the forefront of this movement was Life of Agony from Brooklyn, New York. Their music was heavy, emotional, and raw, and it connected with a huge audience. The voice of that band was known to the world as Keith Caputo. He had a powerful, deep voice that could also be incredibly melodic, and he was seen as a tough but sensitive guy from a rough neighborhood. The band got very popular, touring with huge acts like Metallica and Ozzy Osbourne. But behind this image, the singer was on a very personal and private journey. For as long as she could remember, she felt that her true identity was female. Living as a man, especially as a tough-looking frontman in a heavy metal band, became harder and harder. It was a secret she held inside for years through all the band's success. Finally, in 2011, she announced to the world that she was transgender and would be living her life as a woman named Mina Caputo. It was a brave and powerful moment for the metal community. Mina continued to make music with Life of Agony, her amazing voice still at the center of their sound, showing everyone that being true to yourself is the most metal thing you can do. Mina's story inspired thousands in the metal scene, but she wasn't the only one. Our next star from the world of punk rock had an equally powerful story of becoming her true self in the public eye. 6. Laura Jane Grace of Against Me. Punk rock has always been about rebellion and breaking the rules. The band Against Me became one of the biggest punk bands of the 2000s with their passionate music and smart lyrics. The leader of the band was the singer and guitarist, known then as Tom Gable. His rough voice and honest songwriting about politics and personal feelings won the band a huge number of fans. They went from playing in small basements to playing on giant stages all over the world. To everyone on the outside, he was the picture of a punk rock frontman. But for her entire life, the singer had been dealing with feelings of gender dysphoria. She felt that she was a woman, and the pressure of hiding this while being a famous rock star was immense. She described it as living a double life, trying to be the person everyone expected her to be. In 2012, in a brave interview with Rolling Stone magazine, she came out as a transgender woman and announced her new name, Laura Jane Grace. It was a huge moment in the music world. She was one of the first really big rock stars to do this so publicly. She continued to front her band, writing powerful songs about her experience, and became a true hero for many people. Laura Jane Grace showed incredible courage. Our next rocker was a female pioneer from an earlier era, a woman who broke all the rules about how a woman in rock was supposed to act, and lived her life exactly how she wanted to. 7. Wendy O. Williams of the Plasmatics. Long before the punk and metal scenes of the 90s and 2000s, there was Wendy O. Williams. She was the lead singer of a band called the Plasmatics, and she was one of the most shocking and wild performers in music history. This was not your typical rock band. Their shows were famous for being chaotic and destructive. Wendy would smash TVs with a sledgehammer, use a chainsaw on guitars, and even blow up cars on stage. She was loud, powerful, and she did not care what anyone thought. She was a true rebel, often called the Queen of Shock Rock. Wendy's whole life was about freedom and not fitting into any little box. This was true for her personal life as well. She didn't like labels. She was known to be bisexual and had relationships with both men and women throughout her life. In the late 70s and early 80s, this was not something that many public figures, especially in the hard rock world, talked about openly. But Wendy didn't hide it. She just lived her life. She showed the world that women in rock could be just as tough, just as loud, and just as free as any man. She was a true original who paved the way for so many artists who came after her. Wendy O. Williams was a true trailblazer who refused to be put in a box. The next legendary woman of rock is just as iconic, but she chose to keep her private life a closely guarded secret, creating a mystery that lasts to this day. 8. Joan Jett of the Runaways and the Blackhearts. Joan Jett is a rock and roll queen, period. She got her start as a teenager in the groundbreaking all-girl rock band, the Runaways. After they broke up, she formed Joan Jett and the Blackhearts and became a massive star with hits like I Love Rock and Roll and Bad Reputation. With her black leather jacket, shaggy black hair, and tough guitar playing, she created an image of a powerful, no-nonsense rock and roll woman. She proved that women could rock just as hard as men, and she became a hero to millions. Here's the thing about Joan Jett. For her entire career, people have been guessing about her personal life. Is she gay? Is she bisexual? Is she straight? The truth is, nobody really knows for sure, because Joan has never told anyone, and that's on purpose. She has been asked about it in interviews for decades, and her answer is always the same. She believes that who she loves is her own business and that it doesn't matter to the music. In a way, her secret is that she refuses to have one. She believes that people shouldn't have to announce who they are attracted to. Her rebellion is her privacy, and that makes her even more of a rock and roll legend. Joan Jett built a career on mystery and letting the music speak for itself. But decades before her, another artist tried to do the exact opposite, putting his identity front and center in a way the world had never seen, with truly shocking results. 9. Jobriath. Back in the early 1970s, the music world was introduced to a new artist with a ton of fanfare. His name was Joe Bryath, pronounced Joe Bryath. His record label spent a huge amount of money promoting him. There were giant billboards in Times Square and full-page ads in big magazines. They called him the next big thing in glam rock, a true American version of David Bowie. He was a talented piano player and singer, and his music was unique and theatrical. But Joe Bryath did something that no rock musician had ever done before. He was openly and proudly gay from the very start of his career. At a time when almost every other artist was hiding, Jobriath declared himself a true fairy in the press. He wanted his identity to be a central part of his art. Sadly, the world was not ready. His albums did not sell well, and the press often made fun of him. The massive hype backfired, and his career as a major star was over almost as soon as it began. He was simply too far ahead of his time. For years, he was seen as a failure, but today, many musicians look back at him as a brave pioneer who dared to be himself. Joe Bryant's story of being too honest for his time is a powerful one. Our next artist also made waves by being open about his life, but he did it in the middle of his band's skyrocketing fame during the alternative rock boom of the 90s. 10. Roddy Bottum of Faith No More. The band Faith No More was one of the most creative and weird bands of the late 80s and early 90s. They smashed together heavy metal, funk, hip-hop, and pop music to create a sound that was totally their own. Their song, Epic, was a massive hit all over the world. One of the key members of the band was the keyboard player, Roddy Bottum. His unique keyboard sounds were a huge part of what made the band stand out from all the other hard rock bands of the time. Faith No More had a very tough, sometimes aggressive, and very masculine image. So it came as a huge surprise to many when, in a 1993 interview for a magazine, Roddy Bottum casually announced that he was gay. He did it in a very calm, matter-of-fact way. He said he was making the announcement in honor of Kurt Cobain of Nirvana, who was always very supportive of the gay community. It was a huge deal at the time. Very few musicians in popular heavy rock bands had ever done this. Roddy's decision to come out at the height of his band's fame was a landmark moment that helped open the door for many others. Roddy Bottum's honesty helped change the conversation in alternative metal. Our next musician came from that same era of musical exploration, but his coming out story was part of a lifelong journey of self-discovery in the indie rock world. 11. Bob Mould of Husker Du. Before Nirvana and the 90s alternative rock explosion, there was a band called Husker Du. They were a hugely important band from the 1980s punk and indie scene. They played incredibly fast, loud, and intense music, but they mixed it with amazing pop melodies. This combination of noise and beauty would go on to influence thousands of bands. A main force in the band was guitarist and singer Bob Mould. His powerful and often pained voice was the sound of a generation for many fans. Throughout the years with Husker Du and later with his band Sugar and his solo career, Bob Mould's lyrics were always deeply personal and emotional, but he rarely spoke directly about his personal life in interviews. He was a very private person. For many years, fans did not know that he was gay. It was a part of his life that he kept out of the public eye while he was in his most famous bands. As he got older, he became much more open about it, speaking about his experiences and how they shaped his music. He became an icon in the indie rock world, not just for his incredible music, but for his journey as an openly gay artist. Bob Mould became an indie rock hero. The next artist on our list is a global superstar from the pop-punk world who also shared his truth, challenging the expectations of his millions of fans. 12. Billie Joe Armstrong of Green Day. You would have to be living under a rock to not know the band Green Day. For over 30 years, they have been one of the biggest rock bands on the planet. From their early punk days to their massive rock operas like American Idiot, Green Day's music has been everywhere. The man at the front of it all is Billie Joe Armstrong. With his spiky hair, eyeliner, and frantic energy, he is the picture of a modern punk rock star. The band's songs are often about feeling like an outsider, and they have connected with generations of young fans. Because he is married to a woman and has kids, many people just assumed Billie Joe was straight for years. But truth be told, he has been open about his identity for a very long time. It just wasn't widely reported. As far back as 1995, in an interview with a magazine, he stated that he was bisexual. He has talked about it many times over the years, saying that he has always been attracted to both men and women. For a frontman of such a massive, mainstream rock band, this was, and still is, a very big deal. He has helped show millions of fans that identity can be fluid, and that you don't have to fit into a simple category. Billie Joe's openness in the mainstream was important, but what about the far heavier, more technical side of metal? Our next two artists were partners in a legendary band who decided to share their truth together. 13. Paul Masvidal of Cynic. In the world of heavy metal, there is a subgenre called death metal, known for its super-fast playing and intense guttural vocals. And within that world, there is a band called Cynic that is legendary. They took the power of death metal and mixed it with the incredible complexity of jazz fusion. The result was music that was so skillful and advanced it blew people's minds. The leader of this band, the singer and guitarist, is Paul Masvidal. His guitar playing is considered to be on another level, and his unique vocals, which sometimes use a robotic-sounding effect, are instantly recognizable. For decades, Cynic was known simply for its mind-blowing music. Paul and his bandmate Sean Reinert were seen as musical geniuses who kept their personal lives very, very private. The world of extreme metal back in the 90s was a place of extreme macho energy. It did not seem like a safe space to be different, so Paul kept his secret. Then, in 2014, he and his bandmate Sean Reinert gave an interview to the Los Angeles Times together. In that interview, they both came out as gay. They talked about how they had to hide their true selves for years to survive in the metal scene. It was a monumental moment for extreme music. Paul Masvidal chose to come out alongside his best friend and bandmate. That bandmate's story is one of incredible talent and a life that ended far too soon, leaving a huge mark on the world of music. 14. Sean Reinert of Cynic. Sean Reinert was a drummer, but that's like saying a spaceship is just a vehicle. He was a true revolutionary. As the drummer for the band Cynic, and also as an early member of the legendary band Death, Sean changed how people thought about drumming in heavy metal. He didn't just play fast and powerful beats. He played with incredible skill and creativity, bringing in rhythms from jazz and other styles. He is considered by many to be one of the most important and influential drummers in the history of metal. Like his bandmate Paul Masvidal, Sean was gay. And like Paul, he kept it a secret from the public for most of his career. They felt they had to in order to be accepted for their music. They were a team, supporting each other in private while presenting a different face to the world. When they came out together in 2014, it was a powerful statement of friendship and truth. They were ready to be known for who they were, as people and as musicians. Tragically, Sean passed away in early 2020. His passing was a huge loss to the music world, but his legacy as a groundbreaking musician and a brave man lives on. Sean Reinert's story is a vital part of metal history. From the technical world of death metal, we now travel to its darkest and most feared corner, black metal, where one of the genre's most terrifying figures revealed a secret that no one saw coming. 15. Gaal of Gorgoroth. In the cold mountains of Norway, a style of heavy metal was born that was meant to be the most extreme and scariest music in the world, black metal. One of the most famous and intimidating figures from this scene is a singer who goes by the name Gaal, pronounced Gaul. For many years, he was the frontman of a band called Gorgoroth. With his corpse paint, menacing stare, and terrifying voice, he was seen as the embodiment of everything dark and evil that black metal stood for. His band's live shows were notorious, and he gained a reputation as one of the most frightening people in all of music. You can imagine the absolute shock then when this scary black metal icon came out as gay. In 2008, he was featured in a documentary where he was shown with his boyfriend. He later spoke about it in interviews, confirming his identity in a very direct, unemotional way, which was very true to his personality. The news sent shockwaves through the very conservative and often aggressive black metal community. Some fans reacted badly, but many others were forced to rethink their own ideas. Gaal showed that your personal life has nothing to do with how dark or powerful your art is. He remains one of the most respected and interesting figures in extreme music. Gaal shattered the black metal mold from the inside, but while he came out late in his career, our next artist built her entire band around her identity, becoming a powerful and outspoken voice in the nu metal scene from the very beginning. 16. Genesis P. Orridge of Throbbing Gristle. Some artists play music and other artists change what music even is. Genesis P. Orridge was one of the latter. In the 1970s, Genesis co-founded a group called throbbing gristle, and with them created an entire new genre of music called industrial. It wasn't about catchy tunes or guitar solos. It was about creating challenging sounds, noise, and feelings. It was art that was meant to make you think and feel uncomfortable. After that, Genesis started other projects like Psychic TV, continuing to push the boundaries of music and art for decades. Genesis's entire life was an art project, as he challenged every rule, especially the rules about identity. Genesis, who used she and her pronouns, didn't believe in being just a man or a woman. H.E. or greatest project was called the Pandrogen Project, with H. her wife, Lady Jai. The two of them underwent body modifications to look more like each other, trying to become a single, unified being. Genesis was a true pioneer who explored ideas about gender and identity long before it was a common topic of conversation. He was a guiding light for anyone who ever felt like they didn't fit in the music world or anywhere else. Genesis P. Orridge taught the world to question everything. The next artist on our list is also a powerful teacher, using her music in the nu metal world to fight for those who have no voice. 17. Otep Shamaya of Otep. During the nu metal boom of the early 2000s, a new band named Otep blasted onto the scene. They were heavy, aggressive, and poetic, all at the same time. The center of this storm was the lead vocalist, Otep Shamaya, pronounced Otep Shamaya, with a voice that can switch from a beautiful whisper to a ferocious roar in a heartbeat. She instantly stood out. She was, and is, one of the most powerful female vocalists in heavy music. The band quickly gained a loyal following for their intense live shows and deeply personal lyrics. From the very beginning of her career, Otep has been an open and proud lesbian. There was no hiding or secret for her. She made her identity a part of her art and her activism. She writes and screams about injustice, prejudice, and fighting for your rights. She became a powerful voice for the LGBTQ+ community within the heavy metal world, a place that has not always been welcoming. She is completely unafraid to be who she is and to speak her mind, both on stage and off. She is a warrior who has carved out her own space in a male-dominated genre and has inspired countless fans to be proud of who they are. Otep's role as an outspoken warrior is crucial. Our next artist comes from the punk rock world, a Texas legend who was loud and proud from the very start, helping to kick down doors for future generations. Imagine having a secret you think could ruin everything you've worked for. Now imagine you're a heavy metal god, famous for a tough guy image. That was the reality for these 20 musicians. Their stories are incredible, including one black metal singer whose coming out story is truly one for the history books. 1. Rob Halford of Judas Priest. Anyone who knows heavy metal knows the name Rob Halford. He is the lead singer of Judas Priest, one of the biggest and most important metal bands ever. They call him the Metal God, and for good reason. His powerful, screaming voice and his style, all leather and studs, basically created the look of heavy metal in the late 1970s and early 80s. Songs like Breaking the Law and You've Got Another Thing Comin' are classic anthems that everyone knows. For decades, Halford was the ultimate picture of a metal frontman. But here is the real story. For all those years at the top, Rob was hiding a huge part of himself from the public. He was a gay man in a genre that, at the time, was not always accepting. He worried that if the fans knew, it would be the end of Judas Priest. So he kept his personal life very private. Then, in 1998, during an interview on MTV, he just decided to tell the world. He casually mentioned that he was a gay man, and the interviewer was so surprised he did not even know what to say. Halford later said he felt a huge weight lift off his shoulders. The best part of the story is that the metal community, for the most part, did not care. They already loved him as the Metal God, and that was that. It is amazing to think that one of the toughest-looking guys in music history was also a trailblazer for acceptance. But if you think coming out in traditional metal was a big deal, imagine doing it in the dark and scary world of Norwegian black metal. 2. Gall of Gorgoroth. Let's travel to the cold, dark forests of Norway, the birthplace of black metal. This style of music is known for being extreme, with fast drumming, screaming vocals, and spooky themes. One of the most famous and mysterious figures from this scene is a man named Gall. He was the singer for the band Gorgoroth, and he had a reputation for being one of the most intense and intimidating frontmen around. His stage presence was legendary. He would stand perfectly still, staring at the crowd with a chilling look in his eyes. He was the picture of scary, dark metal. So you can imagine the shock when, in 2008, Gall publicly announced that he was gay. It was for a metal magazine in Germany. The news sent ripples through the entire metal world. Black metal was seen as a very conservative and aggressive scene. So, for one of its biggest names to come out was a huge moment. People did not know what to think. Some in the scene were not happy, but many more were impressed by his courage. Gall, in his typical fashion, did not seem to care what anyone thought. He was just being himself. The story gets even more interesting. He revealed that his partner was a famous fashion designer. It was a detail that was so unexpected, it was almost funny. The scariest man in black metal was in a happy relationship, breaking every stereotype you could imagine. Gall showed that you can be true to yourself no matter what kind of music you make or what people expect from you. From the darkest corners of black metal, our next story takes us to the super technical world of a band that changed music forever, where not one but two members decided to share their truth together. Paul Masvidal of S-Inc. If you are a fan of really complex and brainy metal, you have probably heard of the band S-Inc. They were not your average band. They mixed heavy metal with jazz and other complicated styles to create a sound that was totally new and different. The leader of the band, a guitarist and singer named Paul Masvidal, was considered a genius. He even played on the legendary album Human by the band Death, which is one of the most important death metal albums ever made. Paul was a quiet, artistic guy who let his incredible guitar playing do the talking. For years, Paul and his bandmate, the drummer Sean Reinert, kept their personal lives very, very private. They were making music that was ahead of its time, and they focused all their energy on that. Fans respected them as amazing musicians, but no one really knew much about them as people. The band took a long break for many years, and when they finally came back, they had a new sense of purpose, and with that came a new sense of openness. Then, in 2014, in a big magazine article, Paul decided to tell the world that he was gay. He had known since he was young, but he had never felt comfortable sharing it with the public. He was worried about how people in the often tough metal scene would react, but he was tired of hiding. He said he wanted to be honest with himself and with his fans. He felt it was an important step, not just for him, but for the whole community. Sharing such a personal secret is a huge step for anyone, but Paul did not do it alone. He had the support of his best friend and bandmate, who was right there beside him. 4. Sean Reinert of S-Inc. Sean Reinert was the other half of the creative core of S-Inc. He was the band's drummer, and he was not just any drummer. He was a revolutionary. His style was unlike anything anyone had heard before. He played with the power of a metal drummer, but with the grace and complexity of a jazz master. Just like Paul Masvidal, he played on that classic Death album, Human. Together, Paul and Sean were a musical team that pushed the limits of heavy music. They grew up together, learned music together, and formed their band together. Because they were so close, it only made sense that they would take this next big step in their lives together. In that same magazine article in 2014, when Paul came out, Sean Reinert also announced that he was gay. It was a landmark moment for heavy metal. Two members of the same beloved and respected band coming out at the same time. They explained that they had grown up in a time and place where it was not safe to be open about who you were. They were afraid of being rejected by their families and by the music scene they loved. Their story was so powerful because it was about friendship as much as it was about identity. They had supported each other in private for decades, and now they were supporting each other in public. Sadly, Sean Reinert passed away in 2020, which was a huge loss for the music world. But his legacy as a groundbreaking drummer and a brave human being lives on. He and Paul showed everyone that metal is for all kinds of people. Coming out with your bandmate is one thing, but what about a lead singer who went through an even bigger personal journey, changing their whole identity in the public eye? 5. Mi Na Ka Pu To of Life of Agony. In the 1990s, a band called Life of Agony came out of the New York hardcore and metal scene. They had a unique sound that was heavy and aggressive, but also full of emotion and melody. The voice of that band was a singer who, at the time, was known as Keith Caputo. The singer had a powerful, deep voice and a commanding stage presence. The band's songs often dealt with feelings of pain and confusion, and they connected with a lot of fans who felt like outsiders. For many years, the singer privately struggled with their identity. They felt that they were not living as their true self. It was a difficult and confusing time, filled with a lot of soul-searching. This struggle was happening while the band was becoming more and more famous, which made everything even more complicated. The pressure of being in the public eye while dealing with such a personal journey was immense. Finally, the singer knew they had to make a change to be happy. In 2011, the singer bravely announced to the world that she was transgender and would from now on be living as a woman named Mi Na Ka Pu To. It was a powerful moment of honesty. She explained that she had felt this way her whole life and that it was time to finally be who she was meant to be. The band's fans, who had always connected with the honesty in her lyrics, were incredibly supportive. Mi Na continued to front Life of Agony with a new sense of freedom and power, her voice as strong as ever. Her story is an inspiration, showing incredible courage. But she was not the first musician in a major heavy band to be open about their identity. Our next star was talking about it way back in the early 90s. 6. Roddy Bot Tum of Faith No More. Faith No More was one of the most creative and weird bands of the late 80s and 90s. You could not put them in a box. They mixed heavy metal with funk, hip-hop, and piano music. Their biggest hit, Epic, was all over the radio and MTV. One of the key members of the band was the keyboard player, Roddy Bot Tum. He was responsible for a lot of the band's unique sound, adding cool melodies and textures that made them stand out from all the other rock bands. Roddy was not just creative with his music. He was also way ahead of his time when it came to being open about his life. Back in 1993, a time when very few mainstream rock stars were out, Roddy gave an interview where he spoke openly and calmly about being gay. It was not a big, dramatic announcement. He just talked about it like it was a normal part of his life, because for him, it was. At the time, this was a really big deal. The music world, especially the hard rock and metal parts of it, was still seen as a tough guy's club. His bandmates in Faith No More were totally supportive. The lead singer, Mike Patton, even said in interviews that he was proud of Roddy. By being so open and casual about it, Roddy helped to make the rock world a more accepting place. He showed that your personal life has nothing to do with how well you can rock out on stage. He paved the way for many other artists to feel comfortable being themselves. Roddy was a pioneer in alternative metal. But in the world of nu metal, a style that came a bit later, our next artist was a powerful voice for a new generation. 7. Otep Shamaya of Otep. As the 90s turned into the 2000s, a new style of metal called nu metal became hugely popular. One of the most intense and outspoken bands from that era was named Otep, led by a powerhouse vocalist named Otep Shamaya. She was a force of nature. Her vocal style was incredible. She could go from a soft, poetic whisper to a deep, guttural roar in a split second. The band's music was aggressive and political, and they quickly gained a loyal following. From the very beginning of her career, OTEP has been an out and proud lesbian. She has never hidden who she is. In fact, she uses her music and her platform to speak out for what she believes in. She writes songs about justice, equality, and personal freedom. For many young fans who felt different or unheard, she was a hero. Here was this incredibly strong and talented woman on stage, screaming her heart out and being completely, unapologetically herself. She has talked in interviews about how important it is for people to see representation in music. She wanted to be the kind of role model she did not have when she was growing up. In the world of heavy metal, which can sometimes feel like it is dominated by men, OTEP stood out as a powerful female and lesbian voice. She is not just a musician, she is an activist, a poet, and a true original who has never been afraid to speak her mind. OTEP has always been open about her life, but our next musician took a much longer and more complicated path to sharing his own truth after decades in a beloved and unique band. 8. Doug Pinnick of King's X. There are some bands that are true musicians' bands. They might not be the most famous in the world, but other musicians know how special they are. King's X is one of those bands. They have a sound that is a soulful mix of heavy rock, gospel harmonies, and progressive metal. At the center of that sound is the bassist and lead singer, Doug Pinnick. He has one of the most amazing and soulful voices in all of rock music, and his bass playing is legendary. For many years, King's X was also known as a Christian rock band, or at least a band with strong spiritual themes. This made Doug's personal journey very complicated. He grew up in a religious family and was part of a community where being gay was not accepted. He felt like he had to hide his true self for his entire life. He was a rock star in a spiritual band, and he was carrying this huge secret that he thought would make his fans and his community turn away from him. Finally, in 1998, the same year as Rob Halford, Doug decided he could not hide anymore. In an interview, he came out as gay. It was a decision that had a huge impact on his life and his career. Some people in the Christian music world did turn their backs on him, which was very painful. But he also found a new sense of freedom and honesty. He said that he felt like he could finally be the person he was always meant to be. Since then, he has continued to make amazing music with King's X and other projects, his voice as powerful as ever. Doug's journey was long and difficult. Our next star is from a newer generation, but she is also a powerful voice who is open about who she loves. 9. Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm. If you have listened to rock radio in the last 10 or 15 years, you have definitely heard the powerful voice of Lizzie Hale. She is the front woman for the modern hard rock and metal band Hailstorm. She is an incredible singer with a huge vocal range, and she is also a fantastic guitarist. Hailstorm has won a Grammy Award and has toured all over the world, becoming one of the biggest bands in modern rock. Lizzie is a role model for a whole new generation of rock fans. Lizzie has always been very open with her fans, not just about her music, but about her life. She is known for being very positive and empowering. In 2014, a fan asked her on her social media account if she was bisexual. Lizzie's response was simple and direct. She just said, "I am," and talked about how she believes that everyone should be free to love who they love without being judged. It was a straightforward and honest moment that her fans really appreciated. She is in a long-term relationship with one of her bandmates, the guitarist Joe Hottinger, but she has been clear that she is attracted to people of any gender. She often writes lyrics about love, passion, and being a strong, independent person. By being so open and comfortable with who she is, she sends a powerful message to her audience. She shows that you can be a total rock star, front a huge band, and be true to your heart all at the same time. Lzzy Hale is a huge star today, but let's go back to the 90s to a musician from a much heavier, more underground scene who was also living his truth. 10. Till Lindemann of Rammstein. Get ready for some fire, because our next star is the lead singer of the German industrial metal band Rammstein. Till Lindemann is one of the most captivating frontmen in the world. His band is famous for its massive stage shows, which include explosions, flamethrowers, and all sorts of crazy theatrics. Till himself has a deep, booming voice and an incredibly powerful stage presence. He is a poet and a performer who is not afraid to explore dark and controversial ideas in his music. Rammstein's whole style is about pushing boundaries and challenging people's expectations. They play with imagery and ideas in a way that is very theatrical and sometimes shocking. Because of this, fans have often wondered about the personal lives of the band members. Till, in particular, has always had a very mysterious air about him. For a long time, people have speculated about his personal life and who he is off stage. In several interviews over the years, Till has stated that he is bisexual. He has talked about it in a very matter-of-fact way, without making a big deal out of it. It fits perfectly with his artistic personality. He is someone who does not seem to believe in strict rules or labels, either in his art or in his life. He is attracted to people's energy and spirit. This openness has made him an icon for many fans who feel like they do not fit into neat little boxes. He proves that the most powerful art often comes from a place of complete freedom. Till is known for his over-the-top performances. Our next artist is also a showman, but he does it all with a guitar and without ever singing a single word. 11. Angel Vivaldi. In the world of heavy metal, there is a special place for guitar heroes, the players who are so incredibly skilled that they become famous on their own. Angel Vivaldi is one of the brightest stars in the new generation of guitar virtuosos. He makes instrumental music, meaning there are no vocals. His guitar does all the talking, or rather, all the singing. His songs are beautiful, melodic, and incredibly technical. He can play with mind-bending speed, but he always focuses on writing a great song. Angel is also known for his amazing music videos and his positive, uplifting personality. From the very start of his career, he has been openly gay. He has never made it a secret, and he has built his entire career on being his authentic self. He has said in interviews that he did not want to build a fan base only to have to come out later. He wanted his fans to know who he was from day one. He wanted his music and his talent to speak for itself, and it absolutely has. He has become a huge inspiration, especially for young LGBTQ people who love heavy metal. He shows them that there is a place for them in this community. Angel often talks about the importance of love. Oh no, it's all love, positivity, and self-acceptance. His message is that you should be proud of who you are and share your gifts with the world. He is living proof that you can be a total guitar wizard and a positive role model at the same time. Angel Vivaldi built his career on being open from the start. Our next artist was a flamboyant and mysterious figure from the early 2000s who also put his identity at the front of his art. 12. C. In the late 90s and early 2000s, during the height of the nu metal and industrial boom, there was a band called C. The band was named after its lead singer, a truly unique and artistic performer. C. had a very dramatic and glamorous look, often wearing makeup and elaborate outfits. The band's music was a heavy mix of industrial sounds, metal riffs, and emotional lyrics. They stood out because they were so different from a lot of the other bands at the time. C. the singer, was openly gay and made his identity a central part of his artistic expression. He was a very visual artist who created a whole world around his music. He was not afraid to challenge the traditional tough guy image of a metal frontman. He was theatrical and vulnerable, and his lyrics often dealt with feelings of being an outsider, which resonated with many fans. He was a true original who was blazing his own path in the heavy music world. Tragically, C.'s life and career were cut short. He passed away in 2005, but his music and his legacy continue to inspire people. He was an artist who was ahead of his time in many ways. He showed that metal could be glamorous, emotional, and open about different kinds of life experiences. He was a unique voice who is still remembered by his dedicated fans for his courage and his art. Cian was a unique frontman in the industrial metal scene. Let's travel to an even more intense corner of music, the world of hardcore, to find our next artist. 13. Janis Zangir of Bloodlet. The line between hardcore punk and heavy metal has always been a bit blurry. In the 1990s, a new style called metalcore popped up, and one of the most creative bands in that scene was a group from Florida called Bloodlet. They had a really intense and chaotic sound. At the heart of that sound was their bass player, Janis Zangir. He was a key part of the band's powerful rhythm section. Bloodlet was a band that was respected in the underground scene for their creativity and their powerful live shows. Like many musicians in niche genres, Janis was not a household name, but his work was influential to other musicians. For a long time, his personal life was just that, personal. He was focused on the music and the art he was creating. Later in his life, Janis made the decision to live more openly as a gay man. For fans of that underground 90s scene, it was a cool moment. It was another example of how the heavy music world was more diverse than many people thought. It also showed that you do not have to be the lead singer or the most famous member of a band to be a role model. Just by being himself, Janis helped to break down stereotypes about who plays heavy, aggressive music. Janis was part of a powerful rhythm section. Believe it or not, our next artist was the bassist for the band S-Inik, and he came out alongside his famous bandmates. 14. Jason Todd Sergey of S-Inik. When we talked about Paul Masvidal and Sean Reinert of the band S-Inik, we mentioned their groundbreaking decision to come out together in 2014. But they were not the only members of the S-Inik family to be part of that story. For their big reunion tour, they had a new bassist on stage with them. His name was Jason Todd Sergey. He was an incredible musician who was able to handle the band's super complex and challenging music. Jason was a perfect fit for the band, not just musically, but personally too. When Paul and Sean decided to share their stories with the world, Jason was right there with them. You see, he was also a gay man. It was an amazing and probably historic moment. Here was this incredible band, known for its musical genius, and 3 of its members were openly gay. It was a powerful statement about acceptance and diversity in the metal community. Having 3 members of the band be open about their identity created a safe and supportive space for them and for their fans. Jason's part in this story is important because it shows the power of community. It was not just one person's journey, but a shared experience. He, along with Paul and Sean, helped to redefine what a heavy metal band could look like. They were just a group of amazing musicians making incredible art, and they were being true to who they were. The members of S-Inik changed progressive metal. Our next musician came from an earlier era, but his music would go on to influence thousands of metal bands. 15. Bob Mould of Husker Du. Let's take a little step back to the 1980s, to the world of underground punk rock. There was a band called Husker Du that was changing everything. They played with the speed and anger of punk, but they also wrote amazing, catchy melodies. Their sound would go on to be a huge influence on the alternative rock and grunge scenes of the 90s, as well as on many metal bands who loved their heavy guitar riffs. The leader of that band was a guitarist and singer named Bob Mould. Bob was a trailblazer. In the early 90s, after Husker Du had broken up and he had started a new band called Sugar, he decided to publicly come out as gay. This was a really brave thing to do at the time. The punk and alternative scenes were more open-minded than many other genres, but it was still rare for a major artist to be so open about their personal life. Bob did not want to hide who he was, and he felt it was important to be honest. His coming out did not slow down his career at all. He continued to be one of the most respected figures in independent music. Many metal musicians have cited his guitar playing and his emotional songwriting as a major inspiration. By being a successful out musician, He showed a whole generation of artists that it was possible to be true to yourself and still have a career in heavy music. He was a punk rock pioneer who helped pave the way for a more open-minded rock and roll world. Bob Mould influenced the metal world from the outside. Our next artist was the drummer for a huge popular metalcore band of the 2000s. 16. Pat Rick Keniff of All That Remains. In the mid-2000s, a wave of American metal bands took over the scene. This movement was often called the new wave of American heavy metal. One of the biggest bands from that time was All That Remains. They mixed heavy, thrashing riffs with melodic, singing choruses, and they became very popular. The man behind the drum kit, driving their powerful sound for many years, was Pat Rick Keniff. For the years that he was in the band, from 2003 until he decided to leave, Pat Rick was known as a solid and talented drummer. He was a key part of the band's success during their biggest years. Like many musicians, he kept his personal life pretty quiet. He was there to play the drums and put on a great show for the fans. Sometime after he had left the band and started to pursue other interests, Pat Rick began to live his life more openly as a gay man. It was not a big public announcement to the metal world, but more of a personal journey that he shared with his friends and on his own social media. For fans who followed him, it was just another cool fact about a musician they admired. It was another example that showed that the people who make the heavy music we love come from all walks of life, from all walks of life, from all walks of life.